Hey y'all, what is up? It's been a minute. If you don't know, it's a wrap, aka Yudi here. Welcome back to my channel. We do book reviews, book chit chat on this channel. So let's not waste any time and let's get into it. Okay guys, we are back. Hopefully you guys noticed the difference in audio quality because I finally invested in a better mic. So I'm very excited about that. It was very much needed. the little feedback that I was getting on my mic was getting on my last nerve, and I'm just glad that yeah, we upgraded. Other updates, I'm going to put a timestamp. So if you want to skip to just the things that I've listened to this month, you can skip to there. But other updates for this month, it was actually a very busy transitional month. I'm actually moving. So I've been looking at like different spots to in my area to move into. So that takes up a lot of your time. And if I didn't already say it in my video for last month, I started a new job, and this is like my first real month in the job. So there's just been a lot of learning and things associated with that. So it's been taking up a lot of my time. And yeah, because of that, I just haven't had too much time to read in the same way that I read in the previous months. So I listened to a lot of audiobooks this month. And there was also, I think there was one book that I actually need to finish reading that is just kind of dragging me down. I don't think I was in the mental space, which I never thought I was a mood reader. I'm very much like, I buy the book, I'll read it, and like no matter what mood I'm in, I'll read it. But these days I'm finding myself more of like, I'm actually not in the mental space to really read and digest whatever book I'm reading. So I was supposed to review a book this month, and I'm halfway through it. I haven't finished it yet, and I just don't think I was in the right mental space to read it. And I kind of went into that book blind, so I was not expecting a very big plot point in the book that is kind of heavy, and I'm just not in that space where I was prepared for, even though there is one audiobook in this month that's quite heavy. But yeah, I wasn't expecting that kind of heaviness in a book, so it just took me it's taking me a little bit to get through it. So it kind of threw off the rest of my TBR for this month. And I had a very ambitious TBR this month, and when I realized I wasn't going to finish this book, because I'm definitely the type of person, I don't really jump around in books, but if I feel like a book is kind of like slowing me down, I'll just set it down and wait until I'm back in a better headspace to go and read it. So yeah, which is also another reason why I kind of stray away from DNFs, because I don't really DNF a book. I might set it down for I might set it down for like a year or 2 years and then pick it back up and decide to read it. So I never really DNF a book. At some point I finish books, but yeah, so that is the update for that. So I had 3 books that I listened to this month, and I'm just going to get into it because I feel like actually the commentary that I had is quite robust. So the first book, the book that I had on my TBR in March that I ended up listening to the audiobook, was Don't Cry for Me by Daniel Black. In this book, the main character is a father who is terminally ill, and he's writing to his estranged son, pretty much talking about his whole life from his childhood up until this moment, and why he wasn't really the best father that he could have been, and just trying to get his son to understand who he is as a man, and why their relationship is the way that it has become at the point of he's lying on his deathbed. And I actually really enjoyed this one. It really, I'm going to say that the main character, whose name is Jacob, I believe, the main character, Jacob, for me, he's not that likable. It's like, you understand why he is the way he is, but also you're just like, I don't like that man. I felt like it was human. I actually really enjoyed it. It was definitely emotional for me, and I was invested. And yeah, I didn't like the main character. I didn't like Jacob, but I understood him, and I felt like that's the way you write like, oh, you can not like somebody but still have them be like a fully rounded character where you understand why they make the decisions that they make. While you may not agree, you still connect and understand why they made the decisions that they make. And another thing, his son is gay, and Daniel's just not with it. But also the mother at one point wasn't really with it. But of course she loves her son, so while she may not understand, she's still like, I love my son. While him finding out that, for Jacob, him finding out that his son is gay really puts a serious strain on their relationship. But also I didn't understand why the son, I don't know, the part that was just kind of like, huh? That was just kind of like, what? Is that his son, like, felt like he could connect with the dead or talk to the dead. I was just kind of like, but either way, I still really enjoyed this book. I still have to review it, so I'm not very sure what I would give it. Probably like a 3.5. It wasn't, no, a 4. I would give it a 4. I feel like a 3.5 is too low. I would give it a 4. It wasn't like a bad read. I don't know if I'll specifically, it will stick with me in the way that I think it was expected to stick with me. But yeah, it was a solid read. So I actually read this book. I read this book like forever ago. I was probably maybe like 14 or 15 when I read this, and that was Flyy Girl by Omar Tyree. So the only reason I read this was because is the channel Chocolate Cover Pages. I'll fix myself. I'm pretty sure it's Chocolate Cover Pages, but her channel, she posted a community post and she was just like, oh, I'm gonna read this. And I was just like, ooh, I would really enjoy reading this too, because she was going to do a vlog on it. So I went and listened to the audiobook because the audiobook was in my library's catalog. So yeah, let me just give you my original thoughts on the book. I originally did not like Tracy at all. And mind you, I'm telling you this, I read this probably in like 08, 09, and I was like 14 or 15 in 08 or 09. Yeah, I was like 14. Yeah, so I read this in like 08, 09. I was like in high school, like the beginnings of high school when I read this book. So I was around, actually, Tracy, I believe is her name. Tracy in the book, the main character, the book starts when she's a kid and ends with when she graduates from high school. So I'm pretty much in the range of when the book is written, but like for the bulk of the book, she's like 13. She's like 13. Yeah, I just did not like Tracy. She was so, and I still kind of felt the same way, but I feel like I can give a more articulate reason for why I and I think I sympathized with Tracy more so this time around than I did when I first read it. But Tracy was just so boy crazy. There was nothing else to Tracy except for the fact that she was always trying to kind of catch them all like Pokemon. She was trying to catch these dudes like Pokemon. But all the men all the boys, they're not men, all the boys that she wanted to be with, even like Victor, who was like I guess the ultimate love of her life, I'm just all like, they're not even that great. Like they're not swoon worthy. I don't know why she's doing all this for these boys, because they're not really worth it. I never was, I never will be boy crazy or feeling like I have to have this guy or I need to win this guy over, or yeah, that's just not my stilo. So, and it felt so one-dimensional, and yeah, Tracy just didn't feel like a well-rounded character in terms of her, because it's technically like a coming of age. Like we see her from 7, she's like in elementary school, up into high school. Like it's her coming into her womanhood, and I just don't like how her coming into her womanhood was so concentrated on her relationship with men. Even when she's with her girlfriends, it's like talking about guys, and it's just like there's so much more going on in terms of that age range and like that coming of age and coming into yourself, into your own womanhood, that is outside of your relationship with men, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's why I just didn't really appreciate Flyy Girl then. Now that I read it, I've listened to it, I still felt the same way, but I think I had more grace for Tracy, and I also noticed more so other relationships and dynamics that I was just so concentrated on Tracy and her storyline when I first read it that I didn't pay attention to the relationship between her father and her mother, and how she treated her relationship with her father, and how her father was pretty much trash. But everybody was all like, oh, I want I want to be with a man like Tracy's father. But Tracy's father is not that great. Like, Tracy's father is selfish. Tracy's father is, I mean, he was lackadaisical. Like, he was just kind of, like, just because you gave your daughter money for jeans doesn't mean that you're really there as a, like, in the critical years that you probably needed him there. Like, he was just kind of there whenever he felt like it. Like, I did not like Tracy's father at all. Yeah, I felt like he was given more grace than he deserved. And while his mother was like, either you're gonna be in or you're gonna be out, like, I'm not gonna let you ride the fence, I felt like there wasn't enough fire under his behind. He didn't, and I think because maybe like it's written by a man, it's like there's a little bit more grace to the father's behavior. But I thought Tracy's father's behavior was deplorable, and he was a villain. Sorry, I did not appreciate Tracy's father. And also the love of her life, Victor, I was just all like, I didn't really see it for Victor either. I was like, what do you see in Victor? What makes him so, yeah. And he's like 3 years older than, I think he's like, yeah, 3 years older than Tracy. And you wonder what exactly, except for him being like her first love or first person, I guess, that, yeah, something about it felt like, I want to say manipulation, but it's like when you like train someone, like train a young girl to, there's a word and I can't think of the word, but I didn't appreciate that about Victor. And yeah, there was another character as well. And also her friend, is it Rahima? Her friend, I did like her, but then also it was just nobody that was like truly likable, like nobody that I could like 100% get behind in the story. So it just made it really hard for me. I think, and it was surprising. I gave this book a 3-star the first time I read it, and it's funny that now going back and rereading it, I was just like, I feel the same. It's 3. Is it entertaining? Will you read it from beginning to end and be entertained? Yes. Is it foundationally like a good book? Oh, another thing that I never noticed, that I probably read, but like it went over my head. I never really like, it didn't give me as much ick then as it does now. When Tracy becomes like, it's almost like a hotep. It is pretty much a hotep. It's just a weird, like, she's just all like, yes, poetry and the Egyptians, and, you know, we were queens in Africa. Like, I couldn't get with it. It was giving me cringe. And yeah, it didn't age well. Yeah, but I could still, Fly Girl is still like a hood classic. And on to hood classics, another hood classic that I listened to was True to the Game by Terri Woods. And the only reason I listened to this was because I watched the movie on Tubi with a friend. And I was all like, wow, I've never actually read this book. I've never read a Terri Woods book. And she has like the fundamental hood classics. And I think there's another movie on Tubi by her, and she's written other books since True to the Game, but True to the Game is like her debut. You know, it's the first book that's really garnered a lot of popularity. And the same way I felt about True to the Game, True to the Game might be worse. True to the Game was not good. Actually, True to the Game was terrible. All of the relationships are toxic. There's too many characters. It's hard to keep up. It's also set in the same time in space, in the 80s. Yeah, in the 80s. Fly Girl also goes into like, I think the early 90s. But yeah, they're both based in like the 80s in Philly. And yeah, Truth of the Game just was not like the Quadir and I can't remember the girl's name. Gina and Quadir. So Quadir and Gina are like the main couple, and they have there's no chemistry in the book. They just kind of like see each other and say like each other, but there's really no like character development in terms of like within their relationship that makes us believe that they're really like in this really robust, loving relationship. And it's also very toxic because Quartier has a whole like family situation, baby on the side. It's very toxic, very toxic. And there's too many characters. There's so many side stories. I mean, I imagine if I read it, I wouldn't be able to keep up, but listening to it is not as bad. Like, it's not as bad to keep up with all the storylines. And I thought the movie was bad, but the book is worse. The book might be worse. I actually, in the audiobook, they have is it Erica? The actress who played Gina in the movie narrated the updated version of True to the Game. So, and also I think the best part of this is not Erica, who literally just narrates Gina. The actual narrator of the audiobook itself. He does such a good job of bringing this book to life and giving the book more, I think, than what the actual pages has. So I appreciated that. But yeah, I think urban fiction, which I did a whole video, I'll link it down below, about, I was reviewing the book Life, and I talked about the importance of urban fiction, of that genre, especially of the 2000s, and what necessarily, like, which I think that goes to why I think Flyy Girl has a special place in like people's heart, as well as maybe like a True to the Game. These books that came out in like I think Flyy Girl came out in the early 90s, but I'm just going to put it in the mid 90s, early 2000s era. In that, before that, you know, like a Terri McMillan, or why are names? I don't know. I'm trying to think of authors of that time where it's more of like a black literary fiction that doesn't really speak towards this like urban grittiness. But what I'm trying to say is that it speaks to a certain setting, a certain aesthetic. Like, you wouldn't get this kind, like a True to the Game and a Flyy Girl. It's the grittiness, the slang that very much did not exist in as much as it does now. Like, in the, like, you know, there's no Kindle Unlimited. So just appreciating that, why these books are so near and dear to our heart, because there wasn't a lot of its kind. There wasn't a lot like it, you know. It definitely set the foundation of a more, I guess, elevated writing, because now, you know, we can get these books that have a more, I guess, better storyline, that be street or like slang or more than it did in the past. Because like Flyy Girl was of its kind. Like, you couldn't go out and get 10 or 15 different Flyy Girls by different authors. Like, Flyy Girl was Flyy Girl, and there wasn't very much like it. And now there's like so much like a Flyy Girl and better, that it's hard to go back. Like, it's easy to go back and be all like, this was not good. But there wasn't a lot like it of its kind. So that's why I think it sits so near and dear. And it's, I mean, I don't want to judge because it's written for the young adult, but I'm not going to act like that there's not this audience that it would connect to, that there are people of that age range that aren't living, you know, in this way that it could connect to. So, but yeah, foundationally, as a written piece of work, it's not sound. But I still get why. Like, I'm not going to discredit why it's important or what it added to Black literature, to urban fiction specifically. So that's all I listened to for the month of April. I'm currently listening and reading. I'm not going to get into the stuff that I'm currently listening to and reading now, because hopefully I'll get these videos out to you soon. But until the next time, guys, we will speak in another video. And as always, I'll catch you guys later. Deuces.